Hey everyone, my name's Brendan. I am the director here at the Topeka Zoo and Conservation Program. Now, I know you joined to see Rachel in our virtual education program, but we're going to start something new today, and it's just going to take a minute. But what we want to start doing is giving some local shout outs to some of our local businesses, some that are struggling through this pandemic, some that are businesses as usual. These are not advertisements. You can judge that by the talent. These are just literally shout outs. We're in this thing together, and today we want to highlight Vision Bank. Vision is a local community bank of an organization that has been very involved in the community, supporting numerous things, including things here at the Topeka Zoo. Vision Bank is open at both of their local locations, but they do ask that if you can take care of business online, please do. If you need to get into the lobby, you can do that by appointment. Drive-throughs are open. I spoke to Gary Yeager today, president of Vision Bank, and he gave these two pieces of advice. Relating to your personal banking, communicate with your bank. As we go through these uncertain times, make sure that you have that communication open with your local bank and make sure they know what you are dealing with. If you are a business and you have questions or confused by the payroll protection program, also talk to your bank. Your local bank will help you navigate through that issue. Thanks Vision Bank for all of your support that you've given here. Thanks for what you do throughout the community. Remember, Topeka strong, support local, and now our national educator, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Brendan. We appreciate it. And while we are on the subject of thank yous, thank you Topeka Collegiate and the Kokari Foundation for generously sponsoring our morning education programs. We very much appreciate it. So now, without further ado, let's get started on our class. So today we are talking about 5th grade curriculum relating to matter and energy transfer. And as you'll remember, over the last 2 5th grade sessions, the first one we talked about the food chain, and the second one we talked about differing relationships within the food chain, aside from predator-prey. We talked about symbiosis, and we talked about invasive species. Well, today I want to chat further regarding the food chain, but I want to talk about it in a little bit more microscopic, complex level. So today's class is all about energy and matter, and I want to talk about the two differences between those two things and waste. And today we will meet a big live animal at the zoo who produces quite a bit of waste. So, when we are talking about matter and energy transfers, let's first talk about the difference between the two. So when we say matter, what that is it's stuff that things are made of. It's literally atoms that make up matter. And almost everything around you is made up of atoms. It is made up of matter. Some examples include wood, bones, water, and even air are made up of matter. Humans, we are made up of atoms. So our skin, our bones, our organs, our muscles, we are made of matter. Now, what is important to know about matter is that matter takes up space and it can be captured. So I know I just said air is matter. Well, air can actually be captured in a balloon or a bag. If you've ever blown up a balloon, while you can't see what's inside of it, there is air particles in there. And so matter, you can actually see it if it's in the form of wood or bones or water, or you can capture it. Now, because of that, matter has mass. It has weight to it, right? Think about a piece of wood. That can be really heavy. Or bones, or water. Even air has weight to it. Now, matter can change into other forms. So it can go from a piece of food to a piece of waste. However, it always remains matter. That means it always has atoms. It always takes up space and has mass. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but we're going to come back to some examples of that. Now let's talk on the other side about what energy is, because where matter is made up of atoms, energy is not. And energy should not be confused with matter. They are two separate things. Energy is what organisms get from food that allows them to do things. So opposite of matter, energy, it does not take up any space, it does not have any weight, it does not have any physical form that is being passed from one thing to the next like matter does. Energy is simply transferring the capacity to do things. So you use energy to move, to breathe, to grow. Animals and plants use it to reproduce. So energy allows us to do things where matter actually allows us to build things. So let's think about this in terms of humans. If I were to take a bite out of this orange, food provides you with both matter and energy. The matter in this orange that I eat then transforms into things like bones or skin. Those atoms allow me to grow my fingernails or to grow more skin layers. So the matter is transformed into other atoms, and the energy from this orange, this provides me energy to do things like talking to you today, or running, or moving around. Every activity you do requires energy. And so food gives you both matter and energy, but they are separate things. Now, when we're talking about a food chain, matter is cycled through a food chain, and energy flows through a food chain. So what I want to do next is I want to show some examples of matter and energy as it moves through a food chain and talk about some of the differences, so it might be a little bit clearer for you. So plants and animals, including humans, we take things out of the environment. We take gases, liquids, solids out of the environment. Now plants, the very base of the food chain, like we talked about in week 1 with 5th grade. Plants, they take gases out of the air, things like water and carbon dioxide, and they need sunlight. And those things are what allows a plant to grow. Interestingly, plants can take matter that is not food, like air or water or nutrients from the soil, and they can turn it into food like matter, which is crazy if you think about it. So plants provide food for animals. So here in this picture we have an example of a cow. So if we look here, the cow eats the grass. Remember, matter and energy both come from food. So once the cow eats the grass, the matter in the grass, the atoms, goes to allowing the cow to build itself. The fur, the hooves, when it's growing in its mom's tummy, even things like the organs and the eyes and everything it needs. So the atoms that are in the grass transfer to the cow, and that matter, those atoms, are used to actually build parts of the cow. So the matter portion of the food goes to building, and the energy portion of the food goes to doing. So the energy portion from that grass allows the cow to walk, to breathe, to reproduce, to moo. All of the things, the behaviors that cows do, they get that from energy. But remember the difference. Matter is actually physical things, right? It's the atoms. So it changes forms from the plants into parts of the cow, like the fur and the hooves. Whereas the energy from that grass, it has no physical form, but it transfers the capacity to do things so the cow can actually survive and do all the motions that it needs. Now here's the fun part of the lesson. Every plant and animal in the world produces waste. Now when we talk about waste, people automatically think of grody things like pee and like poop. And yes, plants and animals, many of them do waste. They do produce solid and liquid forms, but there's other types of waste that animals and plants release as well. Gases, for instance, like carbon dioxide, those are released from humans and from other animals. Other types of forms of liquid waste, like sweat or like drool, right? We can release those into the air. And some waste actually leaves as heat, right? A lot of animals and plants, they release heat in their processes that they do. And so some waste includes heat that actually goes out to space. So the matter from the plants goes to the cow, and then that matter changes forms into waste. It could literally be pee, it could be poop, or it could change into gases like carbon dioxide, which is what animals breathe out, and even water vapor. Did you guys know that when you breathe out, when you respire, a little bit of water from your lungs and your saliva actually comes out as well? So there's two different gases, carbon dioxide and water, that we breathe out as waste. Now finally, the matter that was once the plant and then part of the cow and then the waste, let's say in the form of poop, a cow patty, then decomposers like our fungi and our bacteria, they break down the matter, the atoms in that poop, and they recycle it back into the soil. And they change it into elements like carbon and nitrogen, and those then filter back to the plants, and it's kind of like a vitamin for the plants. These atoms, the carbon and the nitrogen, they help the plants grow, but it's not the only thing. Remember, plants also need carbon dioxide, water, and sun to grow. These are the three main things. But the matter here goes to the soil and goes back to the plants, as does the water and the carbon dioxide, right? The water vapor and carbon dioxide that the cow lets out, that goes back into the atmosphere and back to the plants. So you guys, I know this is actually pretty complex stuff if you think about it. So I want to talk about some takeaways from today, just to kind of go back to the basics of what we talked about. So what you need to know is that food provides all organisms with the energy that they need to do things, like growing, moving, breathing, reproducing, and the matter, the atoms that they need to build parts of their body, whether that's the fur, the hooves, the organs. And those two things, energy and matter from food, allows all plants and animals to be able to live and to grow. Now, matter and energy are two separate things. Matter does not turn into energy, okay? They are separate. Matter is atoms, and neither energy or matter can be destroyed, okay? They are constantly moving. So matter cycles throughout an ecosystem because that is constantly changing forms. The atoms are literally changing from grass to fur or to hooves, and then that animal produces waste, and then that goes into the decomposers back to the soil. So the atoms, the matter, is constantly cycling, whereas energy is flowing through an ecosystem, but neither can be destroyed. And matter that is not food, like the air or the water or even the decomposed material in the soil, that is changed by plants into matter that can be used as food. That is why plants are so important, because if they didn't do this process through photosynthesis and chemical reactions, then we wouldn't have food for animals to be able to eat. So I know this is complex, but really you just need to think of it as, does it have atoms? Does it actually require space? Can it be held? Can it be weighed? If so, it is matter. If it doesn't have a physical form, if it doesn't have space or mass, it just allows you to do things, that is energy. And both are important in a food chain, in an ecosystem, and both are constantly being cycled and flowed through an ecosystem and a food chain. So, 5th graders, this is some crazy stuff. So what I've made for you is actually a worksheet. It's a study guide, and it goes over everything we just talked about. It's a fill in the word with a word bank, and all of the words will be used, and they're only used once. But this gives all of this in a study guide so you can practice it at home. As always, take a picture, put it in the comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments. I always go back and try and respond because I know this is some pretty crazy science. It's something that is more complex than we've learned about in any of these virtual education programs so far, but it's actually pretty interesting if you think about it. So what I want to do now is I want to meet an animal who produces a lot of waste, not only in the form of poop and pee, but also in carbon dioxide, right? So we are going to meet Tanner. He is the keeper of our hippopotamus Vision. Brendan was talking about Vision Bank earlier, and so we thought it would be appropriate to do Vision for the waste day because he produces lots of it. So Tanner here is going to talk a little bit about our hippopotamus Vision. Take it away, Tanner.
Hi everyone. So this is our river hippopotamus Vision. He is going to be 10 in August. He was born here at the Topeka Zoo, and he is, both his parents are located in a zoo in California. So he primarily eats a variety of different plants, as well as he really likes lettuce, and watermelons are his favorite treat. He produces almost nearly 200 to 300 pounds of poop a day. This is his outdoor unit, as you can see here, that was cleaned earlier this morning. But with that being said, I believe that Tank is a nickname that we give him as well, and he also really enjoys to eat lettuce. Other than that, I think that we can pan over to his inside as well, if you'd like, and we can show you what is like in his inside enclosure if we want to move into there. Here you go, Tank.
Can we ask you a couple questions first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Question.
Okay, so Tanner, river hippopotamuses, can you talk a little bit about where they live in the wild and the number of babies they have, please?
So river hippopotamuses live primarily in Africa. If I'm not mistaken, they live in Africa to be exact, and I think they have upwards to 3 to 4 babies in pods. So the males are very territorial, and they typically are the leaders of the pods. They have upwards to, I think, a group of 4 to 5 females as well.
Yeah. So somebody just asked if his waste can be used as fertilizer, which is a really good question. We didn't talk about composting today, but I know a lot of waste can be used. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. We don't use it primarily for Tank's waste, but I know that we use the waste that for the giraffes for fertilizer in their outdoor unit specifically.
Right, and I know a lot of herbivores, you can actually use their waste for fertilizer and for compost. You never want to put waste from omnivores or carnivores, anything that eats meat, in a compost, but herbivores that only eat plants, you can actually use that for your compost at home if you have a garden. So do you know how big Vision here is?
I know that the typical river hippopotamus can grow between 5 to 6 feet in length.
Okay.
Although I don't know his weight off the top of my head, I would guess it's anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 pounds.
Yes, so several thousand pounds, that's right. And how wide can he open his mouth? Someone wants to know.
I don't think it's ever been measured, but I want to say he can fit an entire watermelon inside of it in one bite, so pretty large.
Yeah, we've seen him both fit a watermelon and a pumpkin inside of his mouth. He loves eating all sorts of big foods like that.
He would take this whole lettuce at once, but it's good to slowly give it to him time and time again so he doesn't choke on it.
Right, exactly. Kind of like us as humans, we don't want to eat all of our food in one bite, right?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. We're just scrolling through the questions. Let's see here. And do you know Vision's story? Can you talk a little bit about how he came to the Topeka Zoo?
So originally, it's my understanding, both his parents were here, and then I don't necessarily know his story off the top of my head.
So I actually do. So his mom was Mara. She was a hippopotamus here at the Topeka Zoo, and she was on birth control, which did not work because then she had Vision here, her baby, and so he was actually born at the Topeka Zoo. I believe that was about 8 years ago, and so since then his mom and dad have both been transferred out, and he is our sole hippopotamus. Can you talk a little bit about their waist and how male hippos use it as a way to mark their territory?
Absolutely. So we'll use sometimes, often, scents or perfume as an enrichment item for Tank, so that way something new is in his enclosure. He's not typically very fond of it at the most part because he will use his own waist as a scent marker based on to identify his territory, so that way then that he is known that this is my area and this is my domain.
Right. So at the Topeka Zoo, especially his indoor enclosure, his keepers do a wonderful job of cleaning it and scrubbing it and draining the pool every day. And within minutes, he walks in and literally flings his poop, his tail, it looks like a helicopter, he flings it all over to mark his territory. It's pretty gross, but it's also pretty cool if you've ever seen it. It can go super far, and that's just what a male hippo does. Tanner, somebody asked, do they spend most of their life underwater or on land, or is it kind of a combination?
I'm aware they can hold their breath upwards to 5 to 10 minutes at a time, but also I know they sleep underwater and they have this cool type of bodily function where they just will bob back up and not wake up, and then that allows them to come back up and breathe without interrupting their sleep schedule. They spend upwards to 16 hours a day in the water, and then most of the time they come out to either eat or they can just try and relax from the sun, typically to not get sunburned. They do produce a red blood red color, like a sunscreen. It's not sweat, but it has been called blood sweat before, and that's just to protect them from receiving a sunburn on their skin.
Somebody asked, are the boys bigger than the girls?
Yes, the boys are most significantly bigger than the girls.
Okay, so the boys are bigger. Somebody also asked, if you could step forward, they can't hear you that well. Sure. There we go. How do you get him to shift? Is he food motivated? So
he is food motivated. He is also very well trained to the point now where he understands our daily schedule as much as we understand his. So he knows that around 7 o'clock there will be grain available for him in his indoor holding unit. And so then at that point he's more than willing to just come, similar to like you would call a dog inside. You can just call Tank and he will soon follow and bottle his way right out. Sure. And somebody wants to know, how old is he? He is 9 years old at the moment. He will be 10 in August.
Okay, there we go. Almost 10. And is he going to be recommended for breeding?
Not at this time, based on the fact that he's just our sole hippopotamus, and I don't foresee us getting another one, at least in the future. But I do know that ideally it would be nice maybe as he gets older. What is your favorite thing about Vision? I really find just his sheer amount of food that he eats fascinating. So the amount of food and then the amount of waste? Nearly almost Thanksgiving every day for him. So
what a lucky life. Yeah. Somebody asked, do they mate for life?
I don't think so, no. I think that males find other females typically every season, but I'm not specifically sure. And Lori Kay, my mom, hi Mom, she wants to know what the lifespan of hippos are. I believe it's going to be between 40 to 50 years. That's pretty impressive. 40 to 50 years is his lifespan. And how does he play? We can kind of see he's got a big toy in his exhibit right now. Sure. So similar to like a dog or a cat, he does have specific toys that he really enjoys. The blue Tipsy Top is perhaps his all-time favorite, just because he tries to fit the skinny part of the top into his mouth but then it moves and rotates all around the water. So he has a variety of different toys that we try and give him each day, including the orange ball. There's a green pill that we have in his holding at the moment. And so he really enjoys different things here and there to play around with.
Excellent. I know I enjoy lots of different types of enrichment as well. All right, so before we go inside and look at his indoor exhibit to see just how much waste he produced overnight, does anybody have any questions at home regarding matter, energy, waste, or vision, our river hippopotamus? Okay, so as we move inside, if you have any questions, feel free. Otherwise, we're gonna walk inside and we're gonna see the amount of waste he produces in one day. The keepers were kind enough to not clean it yet so that we can see it. So they normally clean it pretty early in the morning. We can oftentimes find them in the enclosure with lots of squeegees and muscle power cleaning this exhibit. So Tank, he has both an indoor and an outdoor enclosure at the Topeka Zoo. So this is his big outdoor space. He loves that on warm days. But just like other animals, for safety, he also has an indoor enclosure as well. And that is in our Animals and Man building. So we are going to take you inside and we can see what life is like on the inside. Now we do have to wear a mask in here, so I am just going to put mine on real quick. And before I do that, I just want to say the takeaway from our message today is that the environment, we take in liquids, solids, and gases, and we repel those out in those same forms. Gas, liquids, solids, whether it's poop, pee, carbon dioxide, all of the waste that we produce goes back into the environment. And the ecosystems, like the decomposers, they take care of that. So, I'm going to put my mask on. I have a cat mask. One of our wonderful volunteers at the zoo made it for me. Here we go. Alrighty, so as you can see, that is quite a bit of waste. And as I said, that was just the overnight amount. So they were kind enough to drain the pool. And you guys can see how all of the waste has settled to the bottom of the exhibit here. It is also along the walls. It is on the stairs. Male hippos love to make a show out of their poo and by flinging it. So, if you ever come to the zoo and you notice that this area is a little bit dirty, do know that it has been cleaned, scrubbed every day. Male hippos just love to use their poo as a way to mark their territory. Okay, do they poo in the water?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
They poo everywhere.
It actually is highly recommended to hopefully poop in the water.
Oh, it's better if they poop in the water, Tanner said.
Easier to clean.
Are there plans of getting a system that would not require draining the water each time there is cleaning? Not at the moment. Those systems are super expensive, and unfortunately that is not the next phase of our master plan. How far can he launch his waste? Do you know that, Tanner?
I know, so just from previous experience, he can launch it high enough and far enough to where it does even touch the lemur's glass behind this wall. So
he can launch it all the way across the building.
Absolutely. So I've seen some specks of it land on the glass located on our lemurs right across.
Wow. So super far.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is Shelly clean? Yes, Shelly is over here. Shelly, you want to wave? Hi. She is one of the keepers that, yes, is cleaning today. Thank you guys so much for that. Okay, well that is the end of our lesson. We want to thank you guys all for coming today. We will be back tomorrow with another big animal at the zoo talking about kindergarten curriculum relating to natural resources. We'll see you guys then.